For nearly 2 decades, Call of Duty has dominated the gaming sphere. But what if the game that defined your childhood was more than just entertainment? What if it was propaganda? Call of Duty has worked hand in hand with military consultants for years. From how weapons sound to how missions play out, realism wasn't just a design choice. It was a marketing tactic. Call of Duty has always sold itself on realism. The weapons feel authentic, the missions feel immersed, and the sound design makes every bullet feel like it's coming from a real gun. But that realism didn't just come from the talented game designers, it came from the people who have seen war firsthand. For years, Activision and Infinity Ward worked with real US military consultants, Navy SEALs, Rangers, defense contractors, to make sure their games didn't just look real, they felt real. This isn't new. The Pentagon has worked with Hollywood for decades, shaping the portrayal of US military in exchange for access to gear, vehicles, and even script approval. Call of Duty is just the next step in that pipeline, but instead of a movie, it's a game you control, one where you carry out Black Ops missions, drone strikes, and surgical raids, all under the US flag. In fact, some missions in COD are nearly identical to real-world military training scenarios. The language, the objectives, even the HUD. It's not just inspired by war, it's modeled on it. And while that makes for great and interesting gameplay, it also blurs the line between simulation and simulation with a message. The question is, if the military helps shape the story, what story are they trying to tell? In Call of Duty, morality is usually black and white. You're the good guy fighting the bad guys from ambiguous foreign nations. But war, it's not that simple. Even in morally gray moments like no Russian, the goal is still just shock value, not reflection. And over time, that kind of framing can shape how generations see war. The Call of Duty series has made one thing clear. There's a right side in every war, and you're on it. The enemy, they're usually foreign, and if you look closely, you'll notice a pattern, a narrative that spans across almost every title. America or its allies are the peacekeepers. Everyone else is either in need of help or in the way. Real-world conflicts are messy. They involve politics, economics, history, and civilians. But in Call of Duty, they're simplified into something you can shoot through. Sometimes, COD tries to be controversial, like in No Russian when you're part of a terrorist massacre, but even those moments feel like shock for the sake of shock. They don't ask you to reflect, they ask you to reload. In most games, you're a soldier following orders. And those orders are almost always morally justified because the enemy is a terrorist, a warlord, or an invading force. But what happens when you never question your mission, when the narrative always places your side as a side of moral authority? It's not that Call of Duty is lying to you, it's that it's leaving out the parts that makes war uncomfortable. Civilians, PTSD, blowback, war crimes. Play enough of these games and the repetition starts to sink in. Certain visuals like enemy compounds, deserts, or mass foreign enemies become automatic symbols of the bad guys. And over time, it's easy to start seeing war not as a tragedy, but as a series of badass moments with you, the star. You were never supposed to think too hard about who you were shooting. But maybe it's time we did. It's no secret that the US military saw potential in Call of Duty. They saw a platform that made war look cool, they saw future soldiers. COD was never designed as a recruiting tool, but it became one. No one ever booted up Call of Duty thinking it was a recruitment ad, but for some people, that's exactly what it became. Call of Duty's audience is a recruiter's dream. Young, impressionable, adrenaline-seeking, and already used to seeing war as a game. For years, military recruiters have acknowledged it, some even say it made their job easier. In 2020, the US Army launched its own esports team, streaming games like Call of Duty and Fortnite to teenage audiences on Twitch. They joined tournaments, made memes, and even hosted giveaways, all under the US Army banner. They got called out, and called out hard. Twitch users claimed that the Army was targeting kids. One congresswoman even tried to ban it. But the point has already been made. The military doesn't need to use TV ads anymore. It just needs to be where the young people are. What's wild is how close COD feels to the real deal. Rank progression, loadouts, UAV, tactical callouts. It's not just entertainment, it's an introduction. There are countless stories of young men who said Call of Duty inspired them to join the military, not because they wanted to serve a cause, but because they wanted to feel like the main character. To be clear, Call of Duty has never claimed to be a recruitment tool. Activision doesn't take orders from the Pentagon, there's no join the army screen after every mission. But that's what makes it so effective. It's not a commercial, it's a culture, and a culture recruits on its own. Call of Duty didn't ask you to enlist, it just made you want to. And if that desire exists, then maybe the mission was already accomplished. To be clear, most people who play Call of Duty never join the military, but that doesn't mean the messaging doesn't matter. When you spend hundreds of hours in virtual combat where deaths reset and enemies don't have names, it changes how war feels to you. Millions of players will tell you the same thing: relax, it's just a game. And yeah, at the surface level it is. But when the game's about war, about killing people over and over again, we have to ask, does it change anything? Call of Duty's gunplay is intentionally satisfying. Headshot pops, explosion booms, enemies fall like dominoes, and the game rewards you with more. After a while, you stop seeing enemies, you just see targets. The line between combat simulation and entertainment starts to fade. Call of Duty doesn't just let you play war, it lets you customize it. The obsession with gear, optics, attachments, it's not just gameplay, it's consumer culture. Real-life gun channels mimic COD builds, and players know the difference between a red dot and a hollow sight by age 13. Every match gives you a dopamine hit, you level up, you unlock new gear, you win. But this isn't how war works. There's no scoreboard in Fallujah, there's no victory screen in Kandahar. Veterans will tell you war isn't fun, it isn't fair, and it doesn't reset. We live in a world where actual wars happen in the background, but they don't hit the same. Because in the game, you're in control, you're the hero. In reality, the people living through war don't get checkpoints. Call of Duty isn't going to make you violent, but it can shape how you think about violence. And if it can turn war into something fun, then it's already doing more than we thought. It's just a game until it isn't. And if it's powerful enough to train reflexes, sharpen focus, and build communities, then maybe it's powerful enough to shape how we think about war too. To many, Call of Duty is just a way to relax, a bonding experience, a piece of digital nostalgia, and that's fair, it's not a mind control machine. But that's what makes propaganda powerful, when it doesn't feel like propaganda at all. Let's be real, for a lot of us, Call of Duty wasn't propaganda, it was childhood. It was late night lobbies full of trash talk and that one friend who always used the Brecci 205. It was fun, it was bonding, and it brought people together from all over the world. Most players didn't join the military, many didn't see it as propaganda, and most can separate fiction from reality. In that sense, maybe Call of Duty is just another story we tell ourselves, the same way movies and books give us heroes, villains, and dramatic tension. And to be fair, the series has tried to evolve. In Modern Warfare in 2019, the lines are blurred, characters lie, civilians suffer, and even the good guys cross lines. It's not perfect, but it shows the developers aren't blind to the critique, maybe they're even wrestling with it too. At the end of the day, Call of Duty is art. Interactive, messy, and imperfect, just like the world it draws from. And like all art, it reflects a culture that creates it. Maybe it reinforces ideas, maybe it challenges them, maybe it's both. Call of Duty didn't invent war, it just gave us a way to play with it. But if we're willing to praise its graphics, its gameplay, its attention to detail, maybe we should just be willing to question what it tells us. Not every war needs a weapon, sometimes it just needs a controller. It's not about blaming the game, it's about understanding its impact and asking better questions before we pull the trigger. The line between war games and war stories have always been blurry. Maybe it's time we start asking, who's writing the scripts? But what if Call of Duty did more than entertain? What if it blurred the line between gameplay and government messaging? Because behind the killstreaks and campaign missions, there's a quiet question no one's really asked growing up. Did it work?